Good evening, everybody, to our November 2025 Raleigh Astronomy Club indoor meeting. And welcome to all the people who aren't here indoor with us. So tonight we've got quite a crowd indoors. How many do we have on Zoom? We've got 7 people on Zoom. We've probably got 26 or so here. David, do you prefer questions in the middle or would you prefer questions at the end? All right, so questions at the end. We can also take some Zoom questions if we have anybody. And also for those indoors, please wait until the microphone is passed to you for any questions. So for safety, identify any room hazards. Keep in mind that we've got rugs and cables in the back here. And of course, we've got everything here up front. Look out for bags or anything in the room with us next to the chairs. Shortly here, we will dim the lights. So as a matter of fact, I should have dimmed the lights first. Let's see here. Oh, wrong lights. I made it brighter. Why is it? I was gonna say, well, uh, yeah. Oh, there we go. Okay. Should have thought of that first. Do we have any CPR identified people this evening? We've got a couple. You're speaking, so I'll let it be Steve. Somebody for the designated caller. All right, it'll be Frank. All right. Location of the fire equipment here in the room. We've got a fire extinguisher back here in the back, underneath the clock. Keep in mind that if you go out any of the doors with the emergency exit listed on it, the alarm will go off. That has happened to us accidentally before. Remote attendees, please be aware of your surroundings at home. Don't fall over your dog. I've done that before. Okay, here are our emergency exits here in the room with us. All right, so upcoming events. Steve, do you want to mention these or you want me to? All right, so we've also got some information about our next indoor meeting on the 12th there at the bottom. But go ahead and go to the next slide. All right, so tonight's presentation is going to be by our own David Shives. He's a seasoned designer and visual strategist for the past 30 years, doing experience in ed tech and specializing in science-based technical illustration, animation, and immersive storytelling. He's been a member of the club for nearly a decade now, and he spends a lot of his time out near his home in Creedmoor when the skies allow for it. He now continues his lifelong passion for science and art through museum quality lunar surface sculptures that fuse NASA data with creative interpretation. And at tonight's meeting, David will be showcasing some of his 3D lunar pieces. And in addition to that, we'll have the opportunity to raffle off a couple of pieces. So some of the people here with us may walk away with one. And I've put his website and his Instagram down here at the bottom of the page. If anybody wants to take note of that. So, David? Now the awkward transition.
Okay. Thanks for having me over this evening. It's been a wild 10 years. We moved down here about 10 years ago, and I was looking for a community like this. I'm just so happy that we were able to find it. So thanks for all the things you guys do. I was just talking to Steve a few moments ago. When we first came down, I had so many questions about astrophotography, and he was able to just in a few sentences, really sum up where I needed to focus my efforts on. I just thank you so much. So let's get into it. Um, all about the agendas, right? So we're going to do a little bit about me, tell you a little bit about how I started with this stuff, where I'm going with it, how this all started, and a little building out behind the house. I'll take you through the Mythos collection, which is more of an art interpretation of lunar surface details. And I'll show you more about the Artemis collection, which is actually data driven using the LRO satellite. Oh, my bad. I didn't even see it. Ta-da. I'll jump into the Artemis collection, which is a bunch of art that's been, I've been using a lot of data from the LRO satellites, been going around the moon since 2009. And I'll show you some of the things I'm working on in the future. And toward the end of this, if you can hold your questions to the Q&A, I might be able to answer some of your questions as I'm going through this. So I don't think that clock started at, let me make sure I get my time right with my phone down. 38. All right. 40 minutes. I'm not that exciting after 40 minutes. So I'll try to do it to 40 minutes. Okay, so 1,000 years ago, I left art school in the early 90s and I was living in central Pennsylvania. So I became an art teacher. If you're an artist, that's pretty much what you do in the early 90s if you want to do something with your career. I taught high school for 5 years where I was teaching art, but not just art. It was also helping out the other teachers, the science teachers, the history teachers. We didn't have a lot of supplies up there around Penn State. So it was pretty important for us to all kind of band together to make some exciting stuff. Well, in the late 90s, my students encouraged me to, hey, why don't you get down to Washington, D.C.? We heard there's a lot of startup companies down there. Maybe you should take a shot at it, trying to get us to go to college. Why don't you try something new? So that's what we did. My wife, Linda, who's seated over here, we took a chance. We went down to D.C. and we were armed with what, $5,000 and a dream to make things happen. And just like most artists, we find ways to make things happen. So if we meet up with people along the way, that's how we make it happen. So a lot of folks in this room have been helping us along even to this day. I started in with a company called K-12 Inc. It was in 2000. It's a small little seed company that had $6 million, but they had a dream to take online education to everywhere in the world. And they met me at a bar. Linda was there and they said, hey, do you know much about education? I hear you're a designer. So sure enough, we made tens of thousands of animations for kids. Most of them were dealing with science, everything from how the osculum will release particles of food inside of a sponge to how the heart chamber valves work. And I got a chance to bump into a couple of my buddies that were teaching earth science. We did a lot of animations with astronomy. I moved on to become a UX and UI design consultant for larger companies. Cisco, I just left with Marriott here most recently. And I'm now currently working with the UNC Moorhead Planetarium for some exhibits for the Artemis teams that are coming up here in the next couple of years. Before I move on, I just want to remind you, I'm still that 11-year-old kid that a lot of you are as well. We still look up and I still get really kind of happy when I see that moon peeking out through the clouds. And I encourage folks here in the room as they are working with their science to share that with other people, to share that curiosity. I was formerly trained as an artist. Yes, Bob Ross High School. That was me. Every Saturday afternoon, PBS. I was there with my paint. And of course, my cat had lots of paint on him as well. So I started off with realism and I quickly started having some fun with all kinds of abstract art. This is a recent piece I made here that's first floor, I think. I moved on to other types of art. This piece here is made with a lot of plaster. You're going to see that I started working with mixed media. Oil was fun, but it was a little boring, so it didn't really go anywhere. And I found myself making these series. You'll see there's a lot of astronomy themes in my work. Okay, every once in a while you need to fill a wall up with something cool. So yeah, when it comes to detail, sometimes as you'll see in these pieces, detail is very important. So again, it's all about what you want to interpret on your walls. Okay, where do I live? Where does this thing all happen? Well, we all know where, is it Three Bear? Right here? I live right over here. I don't know if you can take a golf cart over to that little location, but we're pretty close to that location. Tom and I live in a little community called Hawthorne. It's not a very big community, about 110 houses. But when we moved down, my goal was to go around every weekend to find out where I can get at least a Bortle 7. Well, then when I found Bortle 6 and Bortle 5, well, we were living by the Dulles airport. Everything was fantastic. And now, of course, that's changed over the last couple of years. But Yeah, I'm out here in the country where the skies are dark and it's really quiet. In 2019, I needed an office, so I found a way to convince Linda that yeah, we can make this into a she shed too. You can have your friends over. I can roll the roof off. It'll be an observatory office, you name it. Well, she let me do it. I couldn't believe it, and I had a chance to go ahead and finish it myself and make it so that it's a little more than just a place where you just go out and set your telescope up. I try to use this for outreach as much as possible. Problem with building things is that you find that there's going to be blank spaces on walls. And while I was working on the walls on this piece, I didn't know what to do with this wall over here. I had a TV over here so I can show with outreach what they're looking at through the camera. But over here, yeah, big blank wall. And it kept staring at me the whole time while I was doing the drywall. So on the ladder before lunch, I dropped a lot of plaster on the floor, and it was kind of neat watching that happen because you've seen that kind of a look, thinking that well, that's kind of cool. So I did it again. So I knew I had a small little uh, tool that I can just scoop it up really easily. Well, you'll see down here that yeah, I started goofing around with that. Then I put more plops on the floor, and sure enough, when I went back to lunch, I came back. It looked like half the moon was on there. So I had an idea. Why don't I make some kind of a cool moon sculpture on the wall, make it illuminated so that I'll have some ambient light while I'm there in the observatory? Well, I took over the garage. Thanks again, Linda, for letting me do that. I got some sawhorses. This crude, rudimentary little table saw that I had, and then I found a picture on Shutterstock because Chris will tell you my moon photography is not very good, and I and I found myself starting to draw on drywall compound. Again, drywall compound's pretty cheap. Not the stuff in the can that you get, when you'd have to do a quick spatula job. The stuff in the bags. If you ever use the stuff in the bags, I learned you can put it on thick and it doesn't crack. Well, it'll crack if you accidentally hit with your knee and it falls over, like it happened with this one a couple of times. But it's really good stuff to make sculpture, and it won't burn your fingers like plaster Paris will. Well, more gloops, more glops, and craters started to form. The problem with these first off was that there was just a little too much detail. It did not look realistic, and I found myself trying to sand. For all those folks out here who have ever worked with drywall, you never want to sand if you can help it. You want to use just a wet sponge to get that stuff down. Again, you learn the hard way. Sorry, honey, that's the KitchenAid mixer bowl that I was a little banged up by the time I brought it back. And sure enough, over a couple layers, it started to take form. Now, again, I have this photograph as a reference, but I didn't really know what I was dealing with right here. I had no idea the weight was going to get that big that fast. And something I thought was going to be 30 pounds, well, it doubled in an afternoon. Well, my poor little easel, I look at this wondering when the easel is just going to break in half, but that's what it came out to be. I used the sponges to kind of smooth it out a little bit, and it started to take shape. And I was just so happy because I thought it was just going to be a cheap way to fill up a wall. And then sure enough, boom, I put some lights on it. I found an LED strip, these little Govee LED strips for $17. You can control your phone. I can make the lights look like little icicles dancing around it. Or if I want to play some really loud rock music, I can make it look like it's a disco in there. But sure enough, I had a nice little piece of sculpture. I threw it up on Facebook, and I had almost, what was it, 1,100 hits, maybe 200, 300 comments on it. I said, well, maybe there's a way that I can get myself a plane wave mount, You don't know what that is, Linda, but I hope you never find out. Anyway. But no, sure enough, it was a really nice little piece. It gave some really nice ambient light in the room. And I felt that maybe there's something else in here. But just like with anything, when you're an artist, you start becoming obsessed over things. And I was just taking about every moment I had to make a frame, grab some cheap MDF over at Home Depot, grab a bunch of that bagged plaster, and I started going to work. And pretty soon, I found myself taking some of my own photographs and trying to sketch these in. Now, the thing with these sculptures is that you start with a plan. You think you're going to stay in the parameters where these craters are. It all moves around. It's never going to be what you think it's going to be at first. So with mixed media, you have that ability to start drawing in three-dimensional space. So with more plaster, I found myself looking at neat little details in the moon. I didn't know what happens when little meteors, when they get close to the moon, they'll break up and you'll see those small little meteor tracks. Well, I started off with using an Allen key, and that's probably not what you want to use for the texture on that. I used my finger. Some of the kids next door, they started coming down, and they would draw their fingers into it. So they had their own craters in some of this work. And I found myself, it was a neat little place to experiment. And if you close your eyes and you ran your hand over it, you have this amazing texture that you really can't get with maybe a beautiful photograph printed on metal or canvas. This had volume to it. And I felt with, even with being painted white, it had that sculptural quality that you might see from the pieces like, the late Rodins and whatnot. It had sculptural quality that I didn't think the photographs had. When you look close, every artist says they put a little bit of themselves into their work. Unlike Jackson Pollock, who used to smoke cigarettes and he'd have his butts in the paintings. True story. You'll see my fingerprints all through this. So if anybody ever says, hey, is this an original? Well, it's got my thumb in there. I started experimenting with different types of tools to press into the plaster. I started experimenting with different devices that would smooth out the textures. And it wasn't until I had photographs in front of me, I'd look at the piece and I'd stare back at the photograph, that I started getting the textures right. And this is the piece you see over here to the left, this large illuminated piece. It started coming around, take some shape. And yeah, I was able to find better lights, better higher levels of Govee lights to illuminate it. And I figured, well, I'll just keep going with this until Linda either says you're out of space, get out of my garage, or maybe I start selling some of these pieces. These are some early pieces. These are 12 by 12. You can tell they're fake, can't you? They don't look like the moon. They just don't. They're artsy. They have a bit of a quality to them. The textures are okay. And you see over here on this crater that I started to use some airbrushing. I used to do a lot of airbrushing and painting back when I was much younger. But they had this neat quality to them that it did paint light, but just like a fake photograph, like with a Bob Ross painting, it didn't look like a real place. Well, the problem is that there were two groups I was finding out. Some groups wanted to be realistic, like probably the group here. The other groups wanted to be artistic, where it didn't have to be Clavius. It didn't have to be that exact place. So I found myself doing more experimentations. Here's another piece. This is the piece to the right, where I was getting the textures right. That does look like the southern part of the moon, I think. I've took a lot of advantages here with how high these pieces are, but it still, to me, looks a little fake. So I figured, what the heck? Let's go big, right? Everybody has that one wall in the house where you want to do something big with it. Well, I had to find a way with a piece this big. This is about 4 foot by 8 foot for each panel. I needed to find a way to reduce the weight because it's not the expense. That bag of plaster is not very expensive, what, $12, $13. But a piece like that on a wall was going to be 200 to 300 pounds. Well, I remember back in the day when I was teaching high school, we used to make latex masks. And I remember we used to use aluminum foil because it was cheap. Again, teaching high school, I had to find a way to make it so they can reduce that weight. So aluminum foil seemed like a good spot for it. I went through a lot of aluminum foil, Linda. Sorry, again, this is your looking for aluminum foil. I did find some photographs. Again, not using my photographs. I didn't think they were going to work very well, but it's amazing what you can find out there with the LRO website. And this is a different technique. Now, what I'd used in this piece was a lot of drywall compound, you see here for the top. And what I would do is I'd wait till it dried. And it was almost dry. It's still a little wet, but you ever get that crumbly kind of feeling you get with drywall compound? I scooped all that up and I put it on the side in a little bucket. Then I took plaster of Paris. Now, here's the trick if you want to try this at home. Plaster of Paris has the same pyroclastic feeling that you would have on the moon. Say if a large rock would hit the moon and you would have that lava field in there. So what I did was I poured the plaster in like a little lake. I practiced in these little craters here first to try to see if I get it right. Pour the plaster of Paris in, let it almost set up, and then take your hand in some water and spatter it. What that does is it creates thousands and thousands and thousands of little realistic looking craters. Then I took all those little crumblies that I had in that small little plastic jar and I started crumbling them around. So if you look at the moon, if you're watching, like, say, the Apollo 15 landing video, and I watched that, I don't know how many times, Linda, probably drove her crazy, you'll see a lot of rocks and boulders just out of nowhere. So I started incorporating that feeling into these pieces. And I feel that along with some of these spatterings of moon, along with some of these little crumblies, it did give that realistic look that you would have on the moon. Here's me. This is the dead of winter. It's so nice down here in North Carolina to be able to work in the winter. If you're working with plaster, it's going to take 2 weeks to dry. And if anybody in here wants to try it and have fun with this, please do. It works better in colder environments because it takes longer for it to dry and set up. Don't try this in the summertime if you can help it. It'll crack. Even the stuff in the bags will crack on you. So I found myself, I'd let things, I'd put the initial stuff down and I would take my small little chisels, and I'd chisel around the side because then I can get that really cool edging that you would see maybe on, say, a Copernicus or maybe Tico. You can get some really nice little edging on there. So that was a neat little method with that. And eventually, this is what you get. You'll do a base coat layer with a very dark gray. I would suggest, and this is after, I don't know how many gallons of house paint I went through. I found that chalk paint is fantastic. So chalk paint has that really low kind of sheen to it that you want to have with the moon. And when you start building layers, you want to use at least 4 layers of grays. You'll start seeing the volume coming up really well. Now, eventually, this moved on to having a series of lighter grays, no whites. It looks white here, but unfortunately, it's just a bunch of grays. And I goofed out around with the airbrush. If you take your airbrush, you paint toward the center of a crater and you scoot out with it, it'll give you that same kind of really cool look that you'll see with some of the newer craters on the moon. And then finally, I started building some frames with the lighting kits. Again, these lighting kits are so inexpensive and they're so fun to have. You can change the color atmosphere of your whole room in just a few clicks with your cell phone. But this is what they were starting to look like once they were drying. And then finally, this is that texture I was telling you about. Isn't that neat? Look at that. I tried for 2.5 years to find that texture. Now I can do it in my sleep. Again, it's really easy to do. Get yourself a little frame, build up a little lake of plaster in Paris. Remember, you're supposed to throw away your first 10 pieces. Get used to the garbage can. Everything goes to the trash can. Try it yourself. Grab some, wait till it gets a little bit, starts to set up. Dip your hand in some water, throw it against it, then add your crumblies. And sure enough, you'll start looking like some of these planes that you'll see. And that's even a better shot of it right there. Okay, let me pause for a second to see if anybody has some initial questions before I move on to the Artemis series. Please. Go.
When you showed us the aluminum foil, did you transition from using the plaster in the bag to building a base with the aluminum and putting the plaster on top of it? Did I understand that correctly?
Great question. Yes, I did. Again, it's all about weight and money. You'll be careful you don't spend too much money on stuff. I first tried to use air dry clay, but it didn't save any weight. Then I tried to use other types of the light plaster. It's not light. It's like light beer. It still weighs the same. But to your point, the aluminum foil worked quite well because it has the little crinklies in it, which let the plaster sit into it. It needed an anchor to grab onto. And the clay, I made it too smooth and it all kind of popped out. It didn't have a chance to stick to much of anything. Yes, sir.
Of the panels you have displayed here, how heavy are those? And are you going to bring this and set up for astronomy days?
Great question. These pieces here, this one is approximately 35 pounds. And the one over there to the far, I guess your far right, is approximately 22 pounds. And as far as astronomy days are concerned, I'll show you in in a little bit what I'm thinking about for that. But yes, I would love to be able to be included in astronomy days if possible. I'm going to move on. Oh, you have another question? 1 second. Oh, thank you.
I just real quick, ever try compressed air?
Yes. And my car had plaster. No, great question. I wasn't able to control it as well as I thought I needed to, but it was something I did investigate. I think what happens, I gave up too quick on it. And to your point, when you would take plaster that's not completely set up yet and you throw air into it, maybe 30, 35 pounds with a big compressor or a pancake compressor, I think you can mimic some of that. But when I tried that water effect, I just couldn't get any better than that because it really did a great job of pushing the plaster and then dissipating and then doing a really good job of taking the top of the craterlet and then just rounding it out a little bit to give it that kind of nice form it should have. But the last thing about it I thought was really cool was that I was able to take paint and just dry brush over top of it, which accentuated the top of those little craters with the spattering method. I gotta try that. I guess I gotta try the air hose again. I won't park my car close to it this next time. Yeah, great question. Let me move on to the Artemis series. Let's see. Oh, there's just still a few more details. Plaster is easy to cut if you have a small little tool. You don't need a knife or anything. I'm sorry, I messed up a couple pieces of silverware at the house, but yeah, once it's fresh, you can do a lot of really cool things with it. And this is what they look like. Okay, this is not my house. This is an AI generated background, but these are in our living room right now. And I have the little Gobi timer set up. They go on at dusk and it knows what day of the year it is because Gobi's done a wonderful job with their apps. And these little guys you see in here can turn on at dusk and the lights will stay on as long as you want them to. They've been going now for 2 years and I never had a problem with them. All right, let's go into the real looking ones. Turning desolation into art. So I had aperture fever several years ago and I went a little too big on my scope. And of course, when you have a big scope with a lot of focal length, there's two things you get to get a photograph of: a planet or the moon. That's it. You're not getting any more than 20-second subs if you really can't get your PhD down very well. That's that guiding program. So I spent a lot of time looking at the moon. And even after a couple hours with a focal length above 2000, you can see some really cool things happening on that. This is a photograph I took about a year ago with one of my favorite spots. This is that area near the that area where Apollo 15 landed, and I find myself being very inspired. But what was happening was that these pieces they looked more like the moon than these other pieces were. And again, I was telling you about those two different groups of people, the artisans and the folks that want the real data. Well, I went over to the LRO website and I've been doing 3D animation for many, many years. Well, those models that they have up there are free. They are extremely detailed. And I tell you, some of the best CGI I've seen there of the moon most recently. It's really hard to tell which is a 3D model and which is the moon. The data sets that they have on their website, again, are free, even through the government shutdown that we had. I checked almost every day to make sure that wasn't going away. And you'll find yourself getting some amazing textures of just about any crater you want to have on the moon. Well, they have a tool, and this is going to be included in a link that I have in this presentation. I'll make sure the group gets it. This tool allows you to download just about any spot on the moon where you want to go. You want to get the straight wall, works fine. I took this data and then started hatching a little plan. Well, I bought a 3D printer. I convinced Linda that I needed it for all kinds of things. My not so secret plan was, right? I'm waiting to see if she'll throw a shoe at me here, but I convinced her that, hey, wouldn't it be neat if I was able to make these little guys, these little 6x6s with a 3D printer? It only takes like 3 hours and only costs like $2 in spool or the PLA that's in there. I got okay, let's see what you get. And sure enough, I was able to find models that I downloaded very high resolution. So this is a little clinky, but the models that you get, you can choose how high of resolution you want to have. And even if you have a very primitive 3D model, a 3D printer at home, you can make these at home on your 3D printer. And that's what I did at first. I brought the model in. This is called an STL file. Now you can use what's called a DEM file from the US Geological Survey Group, and you can print, I don't know, mountain ranges from back home if you want, in Colorado. But I was still focused on the moon, and sure enough, it didn't look bad. It wasn't that bad whatsoever. I got Clavius here, I got Plato, Tycho to the right. The only problem was when you got close, and this is a problem with 3D models, unless you got one of those really high-end printers, I couldn't argue that point, you're going to get a little bit of banding. So what I did on this piece to the right is I sprayed this stuff that you'd use for a car, you know, to kind of, you spray it on your car and you can buff it a little bit to make your dents kind of magically go away. And the problem was not only were the dents going away, but the detail was going away. So I knew that this was going to be limited. To get above a 10-inch by 10-inch 3D printer, you're going to need to put a little cash out there. And I wasn't making any money off these things just yet. So I came back to another route. CNC routers are very inexpensive for what you can do with them. They truly are. If you want to get a cutting board, hey, this is the tool you want to get. I picked one of these little guys up for $2,500, and I wanted a tool that was going to put me in between a professional tool, which I have now, which will do 48 by 48 pieces. This guy will get you to 30 inches by 30 inches. No problem at all. The CNC machines use a small little router bit. Now, depending on how complex your model is going to be, that little router bit will carve out a lot of the excess, and then you'll go in with a small little router bit, and it'll go over a period of a day. If you're doing a 24 by 24, or maybe 6 hours with a 6 by 6, it'll carve all of that information in for you. No plaster, no mess, no clogged PVC piping that I had to replace this summer. Sorry. But there's lots of things you can do with a CNC router. And that's what my next tech was. So you get the model in, just like you saw in the 3D program a few moments ago, and you can change the sizes. You can exaggerate the amount of the crater height, width, you name it. You can do a lot of things with these CNC routers. And then you have to find a material. Well, I started with the pink foam because that's cheap. And I'm in Home Depot, it seems like every day. So the pink foam was a really good solution for this. If you look really close, the craters are going to look like corduroy. I didn't set the small little router bit close enough. So it felt like the corduroy pants we wore back in 1978. I didn't like them even then. So I wanted to find other materials. I went on to a material called cast wax. Now, cast wax you can use to make jewelry. You see people making amazing things with this stuff. Slow. Sorry. But that'll show you some of the fidelity that you can get with cast wax. Became expensive. So I started buying like crock pots to heat up the wax, and I started putting this in the oven to heat the wax up. And then the house smelled like wax, and that wasn't going very well. So again, looking for other materials. I went on to another material. This is called Corafoam. Corafoam is a very dense polystyrene foam that allows you to do just about anything with it. In fact, if you go to like a Vegas, you see those gigantic signs, or you see a dinosaur upstairs, they're using this foam. It's very dense. You can get, pardon me? Yeah. Made of foam. I had a sample. Of course, it's at home right now. I forgot that. My cat's probably eating it right now, but it's really interesting stuff. You can carve it like butter if you get like 2 or 4 pound foam. But once you get to like a 10 pound, 8 pound, or 15 pound foam, it has the density of mahogany. It's tough. You can punch that 10 to 15 pound foam. I'm worried about this. I'll tell you why in a few minutes. You're not making a dent into it. Now, if you took a knife out, you might be able to carve into it. But that's the material I found was amazing. It carves really well. Nice little details. My elevator. But again, when you use the Corafoam, you can see the density. I think this is Copernicus. You'll see the roughing area at the top. and the finer high fidelity blade, excuse me, the router bit that goes by as to carve out all those small little details. It was really a wonderful product. Now, when I'm done with that, what I do is I'll take my core foam and I'll get these small little battery powered Dremels with a small little abrasive tip. And then I'll run into these things to just kind of abrade out. If I see any kind of like small little areas that need touched up, great. Money on the side to point nails, maybe, I don't know. But this foam is just incredible stuff. It's really hard to make a mistake on it. And it's light. You'll feel these pieces. They look heavy, but they're quite light, especially when you're getting up to that 24 by 24 inch, 36 by 36, and the 48 by 48s. No need to have a 62-pound piece over here. You can get the thing out there probably for 12 to 15 pounds. All right, I'm almost done. What kind of paints do you use? Again, this presentation, you're welcome to take the presentation and make some of your own, please. And I have links in here for where you can download this data. Chalk paint, chalk paint, chalk paint. It's great. Doesn't clean up too well when it gets on your clothes, but artists are used to that kind of stuff. I've avoided the acrylics and went with gouache. Gouache is kind of like an acrylic paint, but it's kind of made of clay too. So you can activate gouache after a while by adding a little water to it and it'll activate again. So if you don't like what you painted, you can hit it again and it'll move back up. I started with house paint because again, I'm pretty cheap. Went on to the chalk paints and I feel that really has a great job of putting things together for you. Whoops. Yes. Well, that chalk paint you can get there. They have another brand over at Lowe's that they use. But again, chalk paint, just be careful though, because there's chalk paint out there for like $75 a quart. So careful. Airbrushing's fun. And when, oh, I'm sorry, I passed by that really quick. You don't need a very high-end airbrush. In fact, if you go to Facebook Marketplace, you can usually pick one up for $5. I have a compressor, but I use this old compressor in my garage with an old hose, the same stuff you buy at Home Depot, and you can make yourself some really cool things with this. You're not going to make a mistake again, because you can just dab your paint over top if you don't like it and reactivate your paint. I'm almost done. Let's get you to Copernicus. This is the piece right over there to the far right. And you'll see over there to the far right, these things look really neat. I put this up in my studio at night. I had a bar light over it. And I'll just show you a small video. You know what? Let me come out of this and show you the video from here. These things look pretty amazing in the morning when that early sunlight hits it. And if you do use a small little light, you can get the small battery powered LED lights for $22. It'll last for 20 hours. The remote controls. And again, if you want to feel like you're looking at the moon at home at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you can still do that. Almost done. A few extra little slides. And I've moved beyond creating just the wall pieces. And I just started making a series of tables. I put this up on Facebook the other day. And as soon as I put it up, one of my buddies like, well, you can't put a glass on that, can you? It's like, sure you can. I chose areas of the moon where it's pretty easy for you to place yourself a little glass. Now, another friend of mine asked me if I can remove that and put a glass in there. I thought, well, that's not a bad idea, actually. Pretty good. These are made out of wood. These aren't made out of the foam. I'm always experimenting with new textures, new mediums. This is just pine. Bought 2 gigantic pine boards. They're already surfaced at 1.5 inches, $32. And the table base, not expensive. And that took a long time for it to carve. But again, inexpensive materials can make some really cool things happen. And if you want to go to the website, if you see something that you like, if you're looking for a Christmas gift for yourself, or you're looking to make some of these pieces, go to the website. You'll see a lot of that ways that I build these things. Some of the materials are behind it. And again, if I can help you out, if you want to purchase one from me, you're more than welcome. This resource list will be available for folks to download if they wish. And let me head over to the Q&A. We have about another, what do we have here? About 10 minutes or so for questions. All right, Tom. Thank you. I'm always sensitive to how light plays on art. I'm gonna be honest. I never thought of the X. I thought of the straight wall. In fact, that's gonna be starting to carve on Sunday. I'm gonna put that on the machine on Sunday. I've never thought of the X, and I don't know that you can see that very often. But that'd be kind of like those little. Remember those little posters back in the '90s where you'd look at it and you have to cross your eyes a little bit. It reminds me of kind of like an intuitive kind of an exhibit like that might look really cool if you can change the light to see that X. Thank you. That's a good idea. Yes, sir.
And if you want to see something, like that, download the app called Moon Globe, where you can zoom in on
Have
the
it.
moon and move it and show the shadows.
Thank you. That is a fantastic app. Now, if you find yourself wanting to, Stellarium used to be really good with that, the Stellarium Plus app. You can change but another thing, if you want to have some fun, is if any of you have a VR headset, anybody here have a VR headset? If you find one from some kid over Christmas, grab a hold of it, take it away from them, and plug it into your Google Maps, because then you can walk on the moon with a VR headset. It's amazing because you can control the lighting wherever you are on the moon. Any other questions? Yeah, Chris.
Okay, yeah, look at Elliot. Yeah, this is just fantastic work, I have
Thank
to
you.
say. And but I guess taking it to the next level, of course, you'll need make sure you don't get a veto over here. So, so is like, have you thought about like doing something a little bit closer to scale? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you don't get the textures that you have here. Yeah, that is very mesmerizing, and yeah, it fools me. I looked at these and I'm just like, yeah, I suppose that's on the moon because that's all I can think of what it is. But what I'm getting at is that have you considered doing things that are closer to scale, as in like what Armstrong saw on the moon horizon and whatnot, or
Like a
something
panoramic
that. I mean,
piece.
not actually to stand in it, but something, yeah, closer to scale.
I haven't thought about that. Now my mind's racing. Thanks, Chris. I will say that I am working now with Melanie and Michelle at the Moorhead Planetarium. Artemis 3 launches here in a couple of years. Artemis 2 is going in. As soon as that launches, Artemis 2 launches, they're having VR cameras on that, and you're going to be able to look into it live while they're flying back and forth on the moon as they're circling. I think by next year, things are going to change for folks that are interested in studying more about the moon. So I started talking with Melanie and Michelle. They would like to have me create a large table, minimum of 8 foot, possibly 12 foot wide, for the center of the Moorhead Planetarium. As you would go in, you'd see this very large dome-like piece with light on the side, and the dome would move so you can see the moon. It's actually pointed to the sun at any given time. With that, they're going to have some pieces they would like me to create textural areas, so that when you have those little 6-year-old little kids that want to touch things to scale, that tactile approach for, of course, accessibility is extremely important with everybody in museum environments. They're thinking about that. But when it comes to doing a panoramic, haven't gone that far. I have had some folks ask me, hey, can you look at the Star Wars movie that I have, and could you possibly create a scene where that TIE fighter or whatever. I'm a Star Trek guy, sorry. But yeah. Thanks, Chris. I'll think about that. If you have any ideas, please contact me, because I'm always looking for a project. A 20-foot in diameter Play-Doh. Yes. So with art, it doesn't have to have function, but it does have to have utility. I'm assuming that this would be something that you would create for a display, for a themed kind of a place like at a larger observatory or planetarium. I'll see how big Michelle and Melanie want to go with their lunar table. Thank you. Any other questions? All right. I have several pieces I want to give away. The Raleigh team, you guys have been fantastic stewards for this organization for these many years, and it's important for me to give back. So I'm wondering can we raffle off a piece or have them pick from a number from our little tickets over here? Could we have someone online pick these numbers, and can we give one to someone online? I think we could start with a 6x6 for someone online. Can we do that? I don't know how we would do that though. Oh, and I can stop. I'll stop sharing for you.
Well, I do have RAC.
You just go ahead and write Dana Bostic on all the stickers. You can do it that way.
Actually, we've already got them pre-labeled with my name. Well, I guess I'll go ahead. I was planning on doing this work the break. Okay?
Oh,
No, that's fine. You can go ahead and do it now.
sorry.
So, how about a show of hands for who wants a rap? Well, apparently not everybody. Oh, you got So what we're going to do is these are single sided. They're not double replicated. So I'll come back around. Actually, have Susan come around behind and tear the ticket in half. So the numbers on both sides. You got a pen? Luckily, I keep the rest of the roll. I didn't see a hand.
Could do that. It's not. That's a good idea.
Sorry.
I wonder if we could do a Price is Right for the folks that are online. I think of a number between 1 and 50. The closest person gets it.
Listing out names, maybe assign number.
Okay.
Everybody have one that wants one? The rest of the roll is mine. What numbers are there?
So I have 3 6x6s, 2 12x12s, and 1 18x18. And the lighted ones, if you want them, let me know.
Does everybody have half a ticket now?
Ah.
Good. That way I don't have to do it.
I'll start with 6. Oh, a couple minutes. Just a couple minutes. Thank you so much. The small pieces, let's see, the 6x6s that you see up here, like this little Clavius one in here. This was done with a 3D printer. So 4 hours for 3D printing, 2.5 hours for the silicone mold. This one's made out of plaster. So I filled plaster molds up with them. 2 hours for that to set up, 2 weeks for it to dry, hour to paint each one of them. You got a lot of time invested into it. And some folks would say, hey, that's expensive. What you're selling for is expensive. And I would say they're costly. They cost a lot of time. It took me years to learn how to do this. Well, and then there's a lot of KitchenAid mixer bowls that have to be replaced. But I'm just happy to be able to share some of these with you guys to share what I see, not just behind the lens, but what I see at night. So, yeah. So this first one is for clavius right here. Now with these little pieces, you'll see on the back, there's a certificate of authenticity. It's signed by me.
Well, it's got your fingerprint too, right?
Got my fingers on it, but you have a small little sticker. So if we ever get famous, you can say, hey, I was there when. Let's go with clavius. And the first number is going to be 051018. You're welcome. Hope you enjoy it. All right. This one's, I can barely pronounce this. I actually had to bring this up on Google here. It's called Maralacus. It's a crater on the southern end of the moon. This little guy right in here. And we're going to 051013. Ah. Time for someone on the phone. That's a dead one. All right, let's do Tycho for someone on the phone or online. Number 1 to 8. Oh, this is just like Price is Right. Let's go with lucky number 2. Let's have a little thing. Oh, Robert Wolf. Oh, Wolk. Hi, Robert. Congratulations. All right. Robert, are you there? You're muted.
I am. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're more than welcome. Okay, now while we're at it, we still have people on the phone here, or excuse me, on the. I'm gonna pick one more for the folks that are online, and let's see. I'm thinking Langrenus would be fantastic for someone online. This is one of my favorite craters. It truly is. Let's do one for online. So we already picked 2. Let's see. Pick a number 1 and 8. What do you think? Lucky number 7. Jeff K9 VS. You have Langrenus.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much.
You are welcome.
You could give that to Ram
Okay. Thank you very much.
because I'm in Wisconsin.
All right. Now while we're at it. Excellent.
Don't want to.
Always my favorite when the kids come by and are looking through the scope. They love Copernicus. And let's see if we can make that our next one. Let's see. 051014. Congratulations. Congratulations. It's been a while since I've done all the Emmy shows, so I'm not really up to date on making sure things are cleaned up here. All right, we have our grand prize.
Oh, no. I was thinking we were done.
Oh, no.
Hang on, let me get the roll.
Now, the folks that have them, they're not that heavy, are they? They have the appearance of being heavy. And I think moving forward, I'll be doing the 6x6s and I'll be doing the 12s. I'm not going to be doing the 18 by 18. So this is a pretty exclusive little one that you're going to have in here. I'm going straight to 24s, 36s, and 48s. All right, let's see who gets it. Let's see. Ready? 051014. 05. Congratulations. Sign them all in the back. You're welcome. Thank you very much. And I wanted to say again, thank you, RAC, for everything we do. The outreach here is just fantastic. And I really couldn't think of a better group to be able to find a new home when we moved down 10 years ago. So thank you. If you're looking for a light for these things, I'm glancing over here. There are battery powered lights. I'm gonna have this. There's a small little link I have in my presentation. You can download these. Excuse me. You can get these from Amazon. They're battery powered and they have a small little remote. They work a long time, and you can control several at once if you want to. So if you want, there's a link in here. If people want to contact me, David Shives, via the chats, I'll show you where they're at. I think I forgot that with the foam piece the cat's probably playing with right now at home. But yeah, there are really nice lights you can use for these things without having to plug things up with electricity. Thank you. Any other questions before I go? That'll work. That'll totally work. I'd like to see what that looks like against one of these pieces a little at the break. Awesome. 3D printer. Thank you so much.
David, thank you very much. I'm sure everyone will enjoy their pieces. This is truly beautiful art. All right, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up the main meeting for now.